The one-eyed owl appears in this episode? Oh, holy crap. Wow. Now, anime only, you probably won't realize, but seeing the one-eyed owl this early, that is incredibly shocking. I was like, holy shit, when I saw the top of the prison just open up and you see this giant-ass fucking monster come through, and you find out it's the one-eyed owl because of Almond and Akira. Oh my god, I did not expect that type of reveal in this episode. Oh, I walked in this episode not expecting that, and I saw that, and I'm like, what the fuck? So, this episode, damn, it was good. Now, I only have one complaint with this episode, which I will get into at the end of this review, but this episode, for majority of it, hype and great, the tone and atmosphere of it, oh my god, the music. That is something I do want to dive into real quick. That music is just something else. It really carries these episodes. It really does. Like, the music really sets the tone and the vibe, the right vibe you should get from some of these fights. Like, Tokyo Ghoul's vibe shouldn't really be based around the action. It's more about the psychological vibes with the psyche of our characters, and seeing how the music was like a piano sounding, like, that's beautiful, because it shouldn't be action-based, like, you know, it shouldn't be action-based music for Tokyo Ghoul, and to see this, you know, piano, soft, tragic-type music playing in the background as Kaneki's fighting Almond in this episode, that was just so fitting. It really was. Like, that they couldn't have chosen any better music to play with Tokyo Ghoul. Like, that music is 10 out of 10, in my opinion. Music is subjective, depends on your taste, but the tragic, like, sad, slow-tone music, it fits with some of these scenes. Like, I love the way they've been using music at the end of every single episode of Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know if I'm the only one to notice that, but almost every single episode of Tokyo Ghoul Route A has had some form of song playing at the end. A big long song for a battle or something just playing in the end, and it's so fitting. It really sets the mood for the episode, and it makes you hyped up to see the next episode. So moving past the music, I want to dive into the gritty details of this episode. So, I just want to discuss something real quick. So, Almond and Kaneki fight, or should I call him Centipede? Technically, Centipede-kun was fighting Almond in this episode. And for the most part, you really can't call it a fight because Almond kicked the shit out of Centipede. Now, this is very logical because we have to take into account that the gas was CRC gas that, you know, suppresses RC cells, and so you have it to where Kaneki couldn't use his Kagane properly, and that's why he couldn't barely form his Kagane back, so it makes a lot of sense how Kaneki was losing the fight with Almond, but if you throw in the other tones of how Almond and Kaneki have had this, like, connection since the very beginning of Tokyo Ghoul, how they are kind of the only two people that are trying to have some form of coexistence. Like, Kaneki and Almond, I sense in the future are going to be a way to bridge the ghouls and humans together. I've theorized this before when I was an anime only in the beginning of Season 1, and I once again will state that again. I still believe to this day that Almond and Kaneki are going to be the way to bridge the gap between ghouls and humans, because it's so obvious the way the relationship is through this series, especially with how this episode was, like how Almond was asking Kaneki the question, like, why'd you let me live? Like, why did you, as a ghoul, let me live? You know, he's questioned Kaneki. He could have cut Kaneki in half if he wanted to. I mean, he was only cutting off Kaneki's Kagane through the entire fight at the ending of this episode. And so, he wasn't really trying to cut off his limbs, cut him in half, and stuff like that. He was just trying to reason with Kaneki and why he was doing what he was doing. And to see that, it just shows you how far Kaneki has changed and how much he hasn't changed at that. And this is where I want to dive into and talk about a couple things. So, one thing that is very apparent with Tokyo Ghoul Route A is Kaneki. Like, I said it in my last review and I will say it again. Kaneki has been very absent in Season 2. Like, he barely has any time. And it makes us disconnected with Kaneki. And we know for a fact he hasn't barely had any screen time whatsoever when it comes to Season 2. He hasn't. Let's be real here. The only time he's had real good screen time is in this episode and slightly at the end of last episode. So, Kaneki still hasn't had much screen time like he needs, and we barely had any dialogue with him at all, and getting to see what he really thinks after becoming white-haired Kaneki after the events of Season 1. So, I feel like this is being done deliberately, but there's also things I do want to mention. With Route A taking the path of disconnecting us from Kaneki, it makes us to where we don't really understand what Kaneki is thinking. What is he doing? Why is he doing these things? And it kind of detaches us away from his actual current psyche, why he is slightly going crazy. And so, I just want to say, like, I don't know how I feel about that, because, I mean, I'm a manga reader, and I love this anime original. I really love this anime original, but the way they disconnect us from Kaneki, it makes me look at Kaneki as if he isn't the same type of character that I know, because you don't get to see those inner monologue and thoughts and what really drives him as a character. Like, we got a little bit of a glimpse at that in this episode when he was not being able to speak. He was talking about random shit like a bench and stuff. I mean, he was talking randomly, and you could see how he was going psychotic. But we didn't really get to dive into his mind what he was really thinking. Like, I remember some of those scenes in the manga. I was horrified when I read some of those scenes, because Kaneki's dialogue is just horrific when he starts speaking, when he gets into centipede mode. And to see how that somewhat was axed in this, I don't know how I feel about that. But I mean, I have faith in this anime original. I really believe they'll go back and try to explain this centipede mode, because that is my only real issue, honestly. Because Centipede, this mode, came out of nowhere for anime onlys. I'll be honest, if for anime onlys coming into this season 2, this mode would look like an Aspel or a Shonen power-up or something like that. That's exactly what this, Centipede mode that Kaneki went into looks like. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people complain about it looking like a random-ass power-up. But there's a lot more depth behind this Centipede Kagane than meets the eye. So I hope next episode, next week, or sometime down the road, we really do get an explanation on why Kaneki has this, because there was multiple episodes we did not see Kaneki at all, so I feel like they might try to go back and do a flashback of why he has it and stuff like that. I hope they do that. But moving past that, getting to the other aspects of the episode, the overall Ayato fight with his own father, pretty much, that's tragic, man. That is fucking tragic as hell. Like, you see how we get a flashback in this episode where he sees his father walking out the door, and it's kind of like the last time he sees his father, and you see how he's weak and he's still trying to, like, fight his father and all that, trying to break the Arata armor. It's sad. It really is. There's not much more I could really do to describe that scene. It was a very sad and emotional fight. The music was very good. I felt like the animation was great, too, on that fight. And I felt like, the studio that's currently animating the series did a good job of emphasizing the tragedy on that fight, along with Kaneki's fight. So, moving on to Kuro and Shiro. Kuro and Shiro versus Suzuya. That fight, damn. Suzuya is psychotic. Like, I really do love how they're really showcasing Suzuya as a psychotic bastard in this anime. I really do. I cherish that so much, because they're really grasping his character how it should be. The voice actor is nailing these scenes. Like, oh my god, the voice actor Suzuya is beautiful. Fucking beautiful and spot on. Like, seriously, spot on voice acting on Suzuya in this episode. I could not ask for any more, especially when you see him, like, cutting up Shiro and Kuro. That's some fucked up shit. Like, I mean, we get to see a little bit of flashbacks and backstory to Kuro and Shiro. They were once the students of Almond, as we see in this flashback, and Almond has a connection with them, and so does, Suzuya. And as we find out, you have to where Kuro and Shiro were classmates with Suzuya, and they used to be together. In some events, one of their fellow friends died. We don't necessarily know, but you can probably assume it was a ghoul that killed them. And some form or time, they took a path or they turned into ghouls. We don't know how, but they got turned into half ghouls. Most likely the same way as Kaneki. But Juzo, he doesn't really care. As he states, like, people die every day. Like, why should he care? It's another person that died. And this, overall ideology that Suzuya has conflicts with Kuro and Shiro, and it kind of makes them clash in this episode. I like how they demonstrated that in this episode. It's really heart-touching to see, but at the exact same time, I wonder how a bunch of anime-onlys feel about Suzuya after this episode, because, I mean, I can see how some could be very conflicted when it comes to Suzuya's character. He's very psychotic, and he's a psychopath, but I wonder how people really feel about his, mentality of how he acts and what they really feel about what he did to Shiro and Kuro, like he was going to kill them. I mean, we don't really know the full grasp and backstory of Kuro and Shiro, so we can't really necessarily say what they did is the right, or if, they were forced in that situation like Kaneki, so we don't know. And, I mean, I wonder how many of you anime-onlys really feel about Suzuya after this episode. Now, moving past that, the actual next part I want to talk about is the one-eyed owl appearance. That appearance at the end is shocking as fuck. Like, I did not expect to see that appearance this early. Like, no. I did not expect that at all. I really did not. And if you anime-only watchers don't understand, we should not have seen that until later on. But I know this is anime original, and they're changing things, which is good. But I just did not expect to see that, and if they're willing to do a change like that, I wonder what is going to happen in the future in the next couple episodes, because for us to see the one-eyed owl, it makes me believe some other things might happen very soon, so we'll have to see with that development. One thing I do want to mention, though, what happened to the karate master dude kicking the shit out of Kaneki last week? I mean, you remember him beating the shit out of Kaneki and wrecking him, and then Kaneki turns into Centipede? I mean, what happened to him? Like, he just disappeared in this episode. Yeah. So, I mean, we gotta wonder that. But, overall episode, very good. It was mainly a fighting episode, and also gets to show some background, characterization to some of these characters. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this week's episode of Tokyo Ghoul Route A? I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.